Can you be completely sure that the US dollar bill in your wallet is real? To verify it, you need to understand how every detail on the banknote is born, from the anonymous cotton linen fibers integrated with security technology right inside the structure, to the intricate engraved lines that are difficult to copy. Today, let's join Factron process as we break into America's 2 top-secret factories to decode the most mysterious security codes hidden behind the seemingly simple appearance of the world's most powerful currency. Behind every dollar bill is a high-level engineering process operated by only 2 factories, located in Washington, D.C. and Fort Worth, Texas, and run by the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, or BEP. With a workforce of more than 1,500 specialists earning from $25 to $40 per hour, these facilities work tirelessly to produce nearly 17 billion banknotes each year, injecting more than $500 million per day to supply the Federal Reserve. Even more astonishing, the US dollar does not stay only within America's borders. Out of every 10 banknotes, as many as 6 are circulating around the world. The $100 bill you are holding may once have sat inside a safe in Dubai or been used in a transaction at a market in Africa. Because currency has no borders, every dollar bill must be a masterpiece of durability and precision, equipped with absolute anti-counterfeiting technology to guarantee trust across the globe. Before any dollar bill is printed, everything begins with the design at the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, or BEP. This is not simply the work of artists, but a years-long research process carried out by specialists in coordination with the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and the U.S. Secret Service. They must decide every layer of detail, from the portrait, denomination, seals, signatures, and background patterns to the microprinting areas, watermark, security thread, and features that support inspection machines. The design here must not only be beautiful and difficult to counterfeit, it must also be printable billions of times, run through millions of machines, and still maintain the trust of the entire global cash market. With breakthrough features, the research process can last more than a decade to ensure stability before being placed on real currency. Finally, the design is usually announced only 6 to 8 months before the release date to protect national security and avoid giving counterfeiters an advantage. Contrary to what many people think, US dollar bills are not actually made from wood pulp, like office paper, but from an ultra-durable security fiber material, 75% cotton and 25% linen. This is why the banknote does not tear even if you accidentally leave it in the washing machine. Cotton comes from specialized cotton plants grown on farms in the southern United States, such as Texas or Georgia. After the seeds are removed, the fibers are opened, cleaned with air, and filtered to remove dust, seed hulls, and dry leaves. Linen comes from flax stalks imported from Belgium, which are usually retted to separate the fibers, then crushed, combed, and refined to retain the longest, whitest, and toughest fibers. One fact is that the banknote in your wallet may once have been an old pair of Levi's jeans. Pieces of fabric that seemed like waste were bleached, cleaned, and transformed back into pure cellulose fiber. However, the skinny jeans craze of the 1990s almost killed the US dollar. The fashion industry began blending spandex into denim, and even a tiny amount getting into the material could break the hydrogen bonds of cellulose, completely destroying the banknote's natural physical strength. When separating spandex became impossible, the supply chain had to stop buying denim waste and switch to pure raw cotton. From the refined cotton linen fibers, the next part of the journey takes place at Crane Currency's ultra-secure factories along the Housatonic River in Dalton, Massachusetts. This has been the exclusive maker of currency paper for the US government since 1879. Inside the government mill, Mixing vats combine chopped cotton and linen with purified water to create a thick white paper pulp that looks like thin porridge. Then pump it into a cylinder mold paper machine. As the cylinder mold rotates inside the pulp vat, fibers cling to the surface, water gradually drains away, and a wet paper base with controlled thickness is formed. While the paper base is still wet, tiny red and blue security fibers are randomly distributed into the paper, creating an invisible security layer that counterfeiters cannot copy with ordinary printers. At the same time, the watermark is created by changing fiber density, while the security thread is embedded into the paper so it appears when held up to light and glows under UV light. In particular, the famous starch-free formula helps the banknote defeat every counterfeit detection pen on the market. The modern $100 bill also has an additional blue 3D security ribbon, using Crane Currency's motion micro-optic technology with microscopic lenses. If you have a $100 bill there, try tilting it slightly under the light and see whether the Liberty Bell and the number 100 on the blue ribbon are moving. After that, the wet paper leaves the mesh, passes through pressing, drying, and finishing rollers to stabilize thickness, flatness, and ink adhesion. Once finished, the paper is cut into secure sheets and transferred to the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, or BEP. This is a unique security paper, not commercialized, and only Crane Currency in Massachusetts is allowed to produce it under contract with the U.S. government. Once the paper material is ready, the real starting point for every dollar bill lies in a steel engraving. At the engraving workshop of the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, calm artisans work on smooth, flat steel plates, using a pantograph tool to carefully shape every metal detail, from the folds on Franklin's face to extremely fine decorative patterns. After completion, this master die is coated with a layer of chrome to ensure durability against the enormous pressure of intaglio presses. However, one single die is not enough. From this master die, the details are perfectly copied through a specialized technical process to ensure absolute precision. The engraving is covered with a specialized photosensitive material, then transferred into an exposure machine, where UV radiation shines through the design film to form the image on the coating. Next, the steel plate is cleaned under high pressure to reveal the image that has been formed. Finally, it is dipped into an electrolytic solution bath so the printing grooves can be etched deeply and precisely. This process creates a series of identical steel printing plates, ready to be operated on currency printing machines. Once the security paper and steel engravings are ready, the dollar bill enters the most complex printing sequence in the entire process. BP first hides an almost invisible security layer inside the design, microprinting, the technique of engraving extremely tiny lines of text into areas most people rarely notice. On the $100 bill, the words "The United States of America" appear on Benjamin Franklin's collar, while USA sits just beneath the portrait. They are so small that you almost need a magnifying glass to see them, yet they cannot disappear completely. Their job is to be real enough for verification, but difficult enough for counterfeit printers to ruin. Alongside these tiny letters, massive offset printing systems about 50 feet long and weighing up to 70 tons begin printing the background. Offset does not press ink directly from the plate onto the paper. Instead, it transfers the image through an intermediate rubber cylinder, then applies it evenly to both sides of the cotton linen sheet. This helps smooth color gradients, background patterns, and pale security areas stay sharp, clean, and stable. It also acts as a clever anti-counterfeiting trap, because when these fine details are scanned or reprinted with ordinary equipment, they often become muddy, blurred, or produce an obvious moire effect. After the offset layer, the bill moves into the stage that creates its real feel under the fingers, intaglio printing. Inside an intaglio press weighing about 57 tons, the steel plate is coated with thick, strongly adhering ink. The excess ink is wiped away, leaving ink only deep inside the tiny engraved grooves. The currency sheet is then pressed into the plate with a force that can reach up to 20 tons, pulling the ink onto the paper surface and forming the raised ink layer that fingertips can feel. One interesting detail is that the backside is usually printed first, followed by the front. Once the image layers, raised ink, and microprinting are complete, the banknote enters the overprinting system to receive its own identity. Here, machines print the serial numbers, treasury seal, Federal Reserve seal, and identification codes onto each sheet. From this point on, every banknote has a different serial number, becoming a traceable unit within the system. If a bill contains an error after receiving its serial number, BEP removes it and uses a replacement note marked with a star symbol, known as a star note. Because they are produced in smaller numbers than regular notes, star notes always attract attention from collectors. On some denominations, the final printing stage also adds OVI color-shifting ink areas onto the surface. This special ink can change color when the viewing angle changes. For example, the number 100 on the $100 bill can shift from copper to green with just a slight tilt. Together, microprinting, offset, intaglio, serial numbers, seals, and color-shifting ink make ordinary counterfeits fail quickly. A normal printer may imitate the visible colors, but it is extremely difficult to recreate tiny text, precise background patterns, raised ink, and unique identification details at the same time. Before leaving the factory, every sheet of currency must pass through a multi-layer quality inspection system. High-resolution optical sensors scan both sides and compare each printed area with BEP's standard sample to detect color misalignment, blurred microprinting, wrong serial numbers, ink smearing, or distorted images. If there is an error, the banknote is immediately rejected and transferred to a specialized recycling area. At the same time, quality employees still manually inspect random samples to ensure that machines do not miss the most subtle defects. This stage is extremely critical because any mistake can lead to major financial consequences. A typical example came in 2010, when a paper creasing defect on the redesigned $100 bill caused 1.4 billion banknotes to be rejected by the Federal Reserve, while BEP was criticized for lacking large-scale production testing. After that, more than 30 million banknotes from the Washington, D.C. facility were returned because of a mashing ink defect, causing around $30 billion in printed paper money to be held up for inspection. This incident shows that QA does not only protect the product, it also protects the credibility of the US dollar. After passing quality inspection, the new currency sheets are sent into the cutting and packaging system. Money is not printed as individual notes, but on large sheets, and each sheet can contain 32 or 50 completed notes. Industrial cutting machines align with registration marks and use ultra-hard blades to separate them into individual banknotes with the standard size of 6.14 x 2.61 inches. Next, high-speed counting machines automatically gather the notes into straps of 100 bills, then combine them into bundles of 1,000 bills and larger transport blocks called bricks. Each stack is sealed with a specialized paper band, using colors that identify the denomination, then labeled with batch codes, production dates, and control information for traceability. The stacks of crisp money filled with the distinctive smell of ink are finally placed into specialized boxes and leave BEP to begin their journey as the financial bloodstream that feeds the global economy. After leaving BEP, new stacks of money do not enter circulation immediately. They are transferred to secure Federal Reserve vaults, then distributed to commercial banks, ATMs, and teller counters when demand arises. From there, a banknote can pass through thousands of hands, wallets, counting machines, and safes before returning to the banking system. Notes that remain fit for use are recirculated, while worn or damaged bills are removed by high-speed scanning machines and shredded into Fed shreds, tiny fragments that cannot be reconstructed. Each year, this process can create about 7,000 tons of shredded money, with part of it handled as secure waste and part of it recycled, compressed into souvenirs, or used in composting programs. So we have completed the strange life cycle of the world's most powerful currency. From seemingly ordinary cotton linen fibers, a dollar bill passes through security design, specialized paper production, steel engraving, multi-layer printing, quality inspection, packaging, circulation, and finally withdrawal and destruction once it no longer meets the required standard. Every detail on the banknote, from raised ink, watermark, security thread, and microprinting to the 3D security ribbon, acts as a silent layer of defense, protecting the trust behind billions of transactions every day. That strict process has turned the US dollar into more than a tool of exchange. It has become a symbol of economic power and global confidence. But in the age of digital payments, mobile wallets, and cryptocurrency, the role of cash is changing fast. The dollar bill may not appear as often as it once did, but as long as people still need a physical form of value that is easy to exchange and not fully dependent on a screen, it will continue to hold a special place in modern monetary history.